Hey guys, today I'm going to be reacting to a video titled Christians Getting Destroyed by Atheists Debate Compilation. So I'm just going to give a live reaction. We'll see what we got here and see if anyone gets me to deconstruct.
Let's make it not nonsensical.
When you look at prayer as essentially an effect to build your personal relationship with God, to essentially relate yourself to God and in a relationship with God, then it becomes a different action. I think that the problem is that people have expectations of prayer where they believe that they can, I don't know, essentially summon God to conjure something into existence, which is nonsense, right?
All right, let's carry on from
It would help
there.
if the Bible didn't actually say that everything you pray for you will receive. But then the reason that you have to pray doesn't make any sense either, because God already knows whether he's going to answer your prayer. He knows what you're going to pray for, whether you're going to pray or not, and he knows what the answer is going to be, so there's no point in praying. He already knows everything that's going to happen. So the only reason you pray is this. This is the reason you pray, because anything you talk to as if it can hear you, any imaginary thing, whether it's the ghost of your dead relatives, whether it's Xenu, a telepathic connection to extraterrestrial aliens, whatever the fuck it is, it could be a volleyball with a bloody handprint on it. If you talk to something imaginary long enough, it'll start talking back to you, and that's why you pray to God.
How do we know?
Okay. So there's a couple ways to understand this. Again, I subscribe to Molinism in large part. And so under Molinism, God has middle knowledge, meaning that he knows all subjunctive conditional truth values. So he knows what would happen under any circumstance, what people would do under any circumstance. So that actually even steelmans his point more about praying. So God knows what I would do under any circumstance. He knows all factual knowledge. He knows all possible realities in which I'll pray and what I'll pray for and what I'll say. And so he's saying that there's no reason to pray. You're just praying because it'll manifest in your mind if you do it enough. Like that delusion will become real, and then it'll convince you. It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. But again, the reason we pray is to prove our faith and to prove our allegiance to God and to show our allegiance to God and to reveal our hearts to the Lord and to ask him to help us. Even though he already knows what we're going to pray for, it's still an act of obedience to pray to God. And here's a specific, a pretty unique answer from the Molinist view here. So within Molinism, at the beginning of time, before God created, he had a whole conglomerate of possible worlds that he could actualize. And what God did under this view is God went through all the possible worlds and he substantiated the world with the highest number of people that would be in paradise with him at the end while still having free will. So it's distinguished from Arminianism and Calvinism in that way. And so one view that I've heard of is that God also implements our prayers within these different minute differences in the worlds in order to choose which world he substantiates. Therefore, if there are 60% of these realities with like this one variable change that you pray this way versus you pray this way in the 40%, if everything else is equal, if you've heard that term in calculus, all else equal, or if all else is equal, and it's just that factor that's different, God will choose the one that is better. The one that you're praying in for the right thing, or the one that you're praying in versus the one that you're not praying in, or the one that, you're being more faithful in your prayer to God. But also, God can also decide what to allow in the worlds before knowing you're going to pray for something. So if you're going to pray for something when you're 15 years old on the 30th day after your birthday at 3:00 in the afternoon, while you're wearing your school clothes in your bed right when you got home from school, and God knows from the beginning of time that's the exact moment you're going to pray for something, he can still decide to answer that prayer before it happens. So again, saying there's no reason for prayer under this view still doesn't make sense. So if you didn't pray, for whatever it was or for whatever reason at that specific moment when you were 15 in your bed in the afternoon. Well, then God doesn't have that moment to look forward to and say, okay, he's going to pray here about this. I'm going to do this here because he prays here. If you're not praying there, that affects the worlds that God substantiates. And so there are many reasons to pray. Under my specific view with Molinism, it gets a little complicated, I guess, because he knows all subjunctive conditionals. But still, the case is that prayer matters, and God's knowledge is higher than ours. His ways are higher than ours. He can understand the end from the beginning. That's what that means, and he can put into account different factors, different variables that change the reality that we're in based on our prayers in the future or in the past. And he knows this from the beginning of time. But guys, that's going to be it for this one. There were other clips in that video, but I just thought that was the most interesting point that was made. So I wanted to focus on that one. Go ahead, drop a subscribe, comment, like if you enjoyed. Let me know if you disagree in the comments. I'm open to having dialogues with you guys in the comments. And go ahead and check out my last video on Tucker Carlson, If Nukes Are Demonic. See you there.